hold on 1 second. Let me.
Melinda, I was just talking to Mr. James Johnson with the New Start program. And he was sharing that he just bought a house in Johnson County. So we have Dr. Willie Mae Hawkins. Thank you for being here. And Carolyn Perry.
Hey, Melinda.
Hey, good to see you.
Same here.
I really appreciate y'all joining this call. I think we can learn a lot from each other, but I'd love to see us partnering whenever there's opportunities.
Yes, I agree.
So my snow is almost all gone, but it was pretty while it lasted.
Yeah, our snow is gone, but the wind is here.
Mm.
Yeah, it was really pretty and soft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's my grandson's first time. He's 3. Well, he's going to be 3 February 2nd, but it was his first time playing in the snow.
Mm.
Yeah. So, Melinda, you have to kind of guide me on how to help. So I'll just.
Yeah. And I see Carolyn Perry.
Yes.
Hugging you virtually.
And you know, she's I'm sorry. She's our employment outreach coordinator, and also Miss Willie Mae. She's one of our employment outreach coordinators.
Well, terrific. Yeah, and I think people have questions too, but I think kind of what we talked about before, just sharing maybe first, what were some of the things that you first did that didn't work, and how did you get to your current strategies, and then maybe even thinking about ways you'd like to still improve it. And then my guess is we're going to get a lot of questions.
Okay.
What am I supposed to do in this meeting? So let me make sure I have so it's not fresh start. Let me get it right.
New start, yes.
New start.
Well, they are getting a fresh start. A new start.
We'll give it maybe about 1 more minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll just go with who we have.
Okay.
Melinda, I didn't ask folk to share their information, so.
Okay. Yeah, while we're waiting for everyone to get on, if you can just in the chat box put your name, email, and then the agency you represent. And it's really helpful for us when we're doing the minutes a week or so from now when we can't remember what's what.
While we're doing this, I'd like to give a special thank you to Carolyn Perry because today is her birthday and she still volunteered to come and help.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, everyone. James, thank you for letting everyone know that I am aging right before their eyes today. I appreciate that.
I didn't say that. I just said it's your birthday.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Everybody.
And we need any reason to celebrate after this past year.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we'll just go ahead and get started, and maybe a few people will join us. I know it's a little bit of a crazy day with some places opening late. I know I was like, oh, it's snowing. I'm like, it kind of means nothing. I'm still going to be sitting at my desk in my house working, but at least it was pretty. But I know some people started out late. But what I'd like to do is before we go too far, I think each time, we've only been meeting for a few months now. And so what I'd like to do is just go around the room and just see who all's here. And of course, go ahead and also put your name, your organization, and your email address in the chat box. So we'll also have that when we're doing the meeting notes. But I'll go ahead and get started. I'm Melinda Todd. I'm the Strategic Initiatives Director here at Capital Area Workforce Development.
I'm Jacqueline Sills, and I'm with Wake Tech Community College.
I'm James Johnson. I'm the program director for the New Start Reentry program based out of the Family Resource Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carolyn Perry, and I am the Employment Outreach Coordinator with the Family Resource Center in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hello, everyone. I'm Willie Mae Hawkins. I'm also with the Family Resource Center of South Atlantic. I am, like my friend Carolyn, is the Employment Outreach Coordinator in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Kaiser Wilson from Business Services over at the NC Works Career Center at Tillery.
Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Davis. I'm the Benefits Specialist for Volunteers of America, Chesapeake and Carolinas, and we service veterans in Wake County.
Hi, I'm Kimberly, and I'm with the Wake LRC. I'm a case manager, and I'm in the NC Works office with Kaiser.
Oh, Leonardo, you're on mute. Someone's going to do it every time.
Hold on one second.
I'm Leonardo Williamson. I'm the Wake LRC coordinator.
I guess I'll go. Hey, everybody, I'm Peter Tyler. I'm with NC Child Support. I'm the new community outreach person.
Welcome. I think that's everyone. Did I miss anyone? Well, thank you all for coming and really appreciate everyone's time. We've been excited for those of you who are new to this organization. The Wake LRC has been around for a long time, but Capital Area started operating it in February of last year. So perfect timing for everything that happened. But we've been meeting, we've started this employment committee in the fall. So we've only met a few times and really have had some great conversations. And one thing that came out of the last meeting was wanting to hear what some other organizations similar to ours have done, how they collaborate, how they work with both employers and getting people job ready, which we've had some great conversations and I think some movement toward that and have a lot of different programs out there, but just trying to figure out how to coordinate them, making sure all these different skills are happening. So by the time someone's in a job, they're ready for success. And so we invited a few people to come from us from the New Start program. But before I get there, I just also want to do a little bit of housekeeping and thank you. I think we mentioned at the last meeting, we were looking for a chair and a vice chair of the committee, so you don't have to listen to my voice the whole time. I want to thank Kaiser Wilson. He has volunteered and completely volunteered, no arm twisting, we swear, to be our vice chair. I'm very excited to have him on board and helping us when we're thinking kind of the big picture, where we want to go as a committee, helping getting some direction there. Very excited to have him, but just, you hear the word vice chair, that means we still have a chair position out there. So if people are thinking about it, would like to be a part of this, consider it, or want to talk it through, me or Leonardo would be happy to talk to you about that. Or if you have someone who's not a part of the committee, but you think they would be just perfect, either to just join the committee or be a chair, think about that as well. But we also want to encourage, we want to grow this committee and have it to really come up with some projects to help get people more job ready and get more employers on board. So if people are thinking about that and you want to talk about it, just shoot us an email or give us a call and we can talk. We'll be gentle. We won't force you, but we'll be very excited if you're interested in doing this. That housekeeping, if everyone, thank you, Kaiser. I know you're on mute because you're in a big group, but we really appreciate, I mean, you've already been stepping in and giving great ideas. So I think you're going to be just perfect for this role. So moving on, as we say, I have to keep talking here, but I'm about to stop, thank goodness. Just wanted to hear, so, you know, there's reentry councils, there's organizations throughout the state that are doing similar work that we are. And I've been talking even early on when we were first writing applications for some reentry programs for Capital Area, gotten a lot of support from James Johnson. He's been wonderful with ideas, helping us think through things. And so when we talked about wanting to hear about how other organizations were doing employment, I immediately thought of James. And then he, I think, immediately thought of Carolyn and Willie Mae Hawkins. And so what we'd like to do, and I want us to ask questions and that, but first of all, just hear more about how you started your program. I know you recently got a new grant, but you've been doing this work in general for several years. And so just, if you don't mind, we'll turn it over to you and you can just share with us, you know, how you, what made you develop your program? What does your program entail? And from there, and then what are y'all's next steps?
Okay, well, thank you, Melinda. Well, we acquired our first grant from the Department of Labor in 2017, and it was that was the New Start program as well. It was a 3-year grant, and it was career focused to help returning citizens to get into the job market. And I came in the middle of that as a case manager. And I remember we, you know, of course, we would define jobs for our participants, and we work closely. And thank God for the partnership with NC Works, you know, Career Center, you know, and so that was working fine. But then there came a point when we really needed more jobs than that we saw that was available. So we had this rush. And Carolyn at the time, she was the employment outreach. She was doing some employment outreach at then. So we needed to do something different. And there was new laws coming out and benefits to employers. So we had to be creative. We were finding we had client or participants who they didn't have transportation. So Carolyn and I, we put our heads together. We say, well, what about jobs on the bus line? You know, are we having jobs on the bus line? So we did the old-fashioned thing. I got out and we cruised the neighborhood, and we were looking for mom pop places, you know, small plumbing companies. We were looking for just small companies that maybe could use help. And at one time we went to Knight Truck Company, and we had the brochures. And I went in there, I introduced myself as the case manager for New Start. And, you know, if you would work with one of our participants, you know, we can give you we can help with his pay until a certain time. And then if you like him, you can take over. So we did creative things like that. So long story short, the gentleman who owned the truck company, the truck repair company, brought him on and actually sent him to diesel school. And his business went from 5 days a week to 7 days a week. And it was a great union. So, and Carolyn can tell you some creative things that we've done. So we partnered with the actual employers themselves. But before you get to that, I'll look at the bigger picture too. And this is probably something you're doing already. But one of the big things is connecting with the Chamber of Commerce, because they're connected with all the employers. So if we sell the program to them, they'll give us an open door to employers to talk directly with them about our program. And when we go to meet with, and so we want a meeting with the employers. Once we meet with the employers, and make sure that someone who's meeting with the CEO or the director of a company is comfortable talking to people on that level. It makes a big difference. We had a pattern, Carol and I. Going back to Mr. Knight, when I met Mr. Knight and told him about the program, he was excited about the program. But what I did is immediately called Carolyn and said, "Come on, Carolyn, you got to meet him." And Carolyn took it over from there. So we work in partnerships. So if you have a person who's comfortable meeting with CEOs, you meet with them. But if there's somebody else who knows more about the program, you bring them on board. And it opened doors for on-the-job training and different things like that. And there's some people some companies were a little apprehensive about working with returning citizens. So we ensure them that we'll work with them. We had one person who we sent to a tire company. It was a small tire company. They taught him how to change tires. And we said, you know what? If you're comfortable with it, we'll visit every 2 weeks just to see how he's doing. They felt comfortable with that, so it felt like if they had to discipline him in any way, we would get between that, so he won't have to interact with him directly. So so you find what the comfort zone is, and one of the big things is when we meet with the company, we don't meet trying to sell our program to them. We meet them trying to find out what their needs are. So we ask them, okay, well, what are what are you faced with? How can we help you? And a lot of times they say, well, they have a retention problem. And they say, well, why are you having that retention problem? Well, and when they tell us, we are taking notes, and then you think about ways that you can help them. So we met with Crown Tire Repair, and they were having a retention problem, and we said, okay, well, we can make sure that we could make sure that our participants can get there on time, and so we work with peer mentors that can help, give them job advice and keep coaching them, and we let the employers know that, hey, our guys or our women, our participants, they come with coaching. We're going to coach them. Sometimes I remember there was a case where an employer was telling us that people would come in, they would get paid, and you wouldn't see them for 2 weeks. Or they would call 5 minutes before their shift to tell them they weren't coming. They had these little things. So we ensure them that we give that training up front to make sure our participants are groomed in those areas, and we continue to coach them to let them know that we're going to partner with you. We're not going to throw them on you and leave. We're going to partner with you. And I can say a lot more, but I want to lean on Carolyn for some of her experiences. Carolyn, could you chime in too?
Absolutely. Melinda, of course, Melinda and I know each other. We actually worked together for a couple of years back. So Melinda knows that I can be a little rough around the edges, also hard-nosed. So when we initially came on the phone, you said the most valuable things are some of the lessons that we learned, right? So one of the things that I came in, and me, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And I realized that I had to allow the participants, because I was the kind of person, I came in and talked to them, decided based on what they said, what they needed to be in life, and I was going to help them get to that. But the most important lesson that I learned in working with individuals who are just as involved is that you have to allow the client to decide how they want to participate with you when it comes to a job, because you can get them the best job in the world, but if they don't have the desire to go, or if they don't, one of the things that we ran into, like James said, was retention. And one of the problems came with the retention was that once they got their first check, they were gone. So what I realized is I started out when I was working with individuals, giving them some things to do. Now, not any huge things, but just some things to do to see how much follow through they had. what I like about our model is that while we facilitate, most of the work that we do is sort of like the traffic cop kind of thing, if you will. So we are making referrals to other agencies that are doing the work. So when I saw that individuals had problems, and one time we had a guy, we said, now you got to, because what we did was we did the background check and we did a substance assessment before we sent anybody to a job. We had one young man. James had him. It was so funny. We were in the bathroom with the drug test there. Gonna be able to pass the drug test? Yeah, gonna be able to pass the drug test. Go in the stall, take the drug test, and guess what? He doesn't pass. Another gentleman, he get a job, really great job. He's interviewed well. They want to hire him. They tell him to go over to take the drug test. He calls me, Miss Perry, I'm sitting in the car. I'm in trouble. I said, what is? I can't go take the drug test. Why? I can't pass. So these are the types of things that, again, you have to allow them, give them an opportunity to bring out so that you can adjust that. Now, when it came to looking for employers, it's never been really hard to get an employer to work with us. What became the issue a lot of times was the pay. And transportation, and we work in rural counties or continue to work in rural counties, so transportation was a barrier. One of the things that James talked about, and I had forgot that we did, and we actually talked about this on a conference call the other day, is you have to know the neighborhood that you're working in. So it really does help you to get out and walk and drive the neighborhood so that you know what's in the neighborhood and what's not in the neighborhood. And we were working in Wilson County, and one day we just decided to get the bus line, drive along the bus line, and to see what employers were on the bus line. And then we went to those employers to ask them about whether they would be willing to participate in the program, and they were. And some of the businesses, a lot of times, now large businesses, they're not really huge fans of on-job training and other programs that provide some subsidies to their pay. But small businesses, we found, were the sweet spot. We found a electrician in Henderson who had a thriving business, and he needed workers. So when we told him, as part of our subsidy program, if he would pay this amount, we would meet it with another amount, but he had to maintain that salary after the person was there for 90 days, he was more than willing to do that. We ended up placing 3, but one did not work out with him. But it was the opportunity, but the one that didn't work out, that was a lesson learned, because it turned out that the reason why he was having difficulty finding a job is, to him, the hunt was to find a job. After he found the job, he wasn't really that interested in working hard with that. But that was a lesson that we learned too. But going small businesses, knowing your community. James and Willie Mae and I participated in a call the other day that talked about community assets, community mapping, going and looking at the resources that are in your community and deciding how those resources can plug into what you're doing. It was a really very interesting conversation. That's something else that you have to do, because one of the lessons that I learned is, again, it was not difficult to get individuals jobs. It was more difficult to get jobs that were paying living wages with benefits, and also to be able to get an individual to have a work mindset. And so, like James said, my job was that if there was a person that we placed on the job and that person didn't work out, the employer didn't have to tell the person that they weren't working out. The employer could literally call me. I would call that person either at the end of the day, or if he needed me to do it right then, I would call them right then and tell them that they were not to return to the job site, and that they needed to see me. But communications and allowing individuals to see them out, to see what it is that they're bringing to the table, and not start just coming in. And because I was coming in and I got this, I want you to go here, I want you to go here, I want you to meet back with them. What have you done? Oh, I didn't do anything. I mean, one guy, I kept referring him to the NC Works office, and he would never go. And I was like, well, what's the deal? Well, I thought she was going to call me. But you are the one working that, wants to, that's needing work. So why would the NC Works office call you? And to be honest, he got in a job that was a low paying job. when we left that county, he was still in that job. He had just become so complacent, and that's what he was used to. He just didn't have the initiative, if you will, to look for greater things than that. See another lesson. So small businesses, asset mapping your communities to be sure you know what resources are in the community. Let me see what else we did.
Well,
Those
I
are
got
the
what.
three things that come to me offhand. James, were you getting ready to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say. You brought up a point. I just want to expand on that a little bit. We all want to meet people where they are, but also be comfortable leaving them where they are if they need to be there. So when we build relationships with a business, a personal relationship with a business, we're going to make sure that we really vet those that we send to that company. So it's not just find them a job; it's find that person who's right for that job.
And building a trust with the individuals. As I say, when I initially started out in the program, I was the employment outreach coordinator. And then in about a year and a half into the program, I moved to a case manager. And James had gotten promoted, so I came into his portfolio. And one of the things that I had to really work to do was to build a trust with individuals. So they know if they told me something, I would hold their confidence, or if there was something really going on that, that they could depend on me to be responsive. So building that trust is another important piece when it comes to working with individuals who are just as involved, because they've had a history probably of not having people that they can trust, or not at least feeling like they're people they could trust. So that was another important piece that I learned as a part of the position too.
Well, if I can, can I plug in there?
Sure.
And the person I'm talking about, we had a person who we actually invite businesses to our workshops when we have a peer mentors, and they actually hire from our group. But it's not the job and the opportunity. Sometimes it's the person. We had a guy, he got fired before we knew he had a job. I said, what happened? He said, I didn't like that job. I said, what job? He said, oh, I didn't tell you. So we would send him to the job, he would get fired. So we say, okay, before we go any further, you're gonna have to get evaluated and find out he had an issue where he was a case for vocational rehab. So that
and jumping off that a little bit, and this is probably not going to sound the most politically correct thing to say, but we had jobs so I had one employer that had a very good wage. She paid almost $20 an hour. Well, the person that I was going to refer that job to was not going to be the person that had just entered the program a month ago. That was going to be the person that was already at a job and doing quite well at the job. And by the way, one of the things that we do when we place individuals, I check in with the employees and say, how's it going? Is it anything that we need to be aware of? Anything we need to work on? So again, the job that had the good salary, that's not the guy who showed up at the office on Monday asking for a referral. That's a person who's already been in the program. I see how responsive he is to what needs to happen. And that's the person that I refer that to. So it's sort of a tiered approach to our employers, if you will. And like James said, the Chamber of Commerce was really very good. We didn't have a huge turnout when we went to present to the chamber, but just a few that we had, man, they really spread the word around. And in about a week, our telephone was ringing off the hook. Then the other thing that I forgot, I thought about when you were talking, James, especially in our rural communities. I don't know so much in the urban areas, Melinda, but the media, the newspapers there were really, it was not hard to get media coverage for stuff that we did. I know for every county we were in, we were featured. Some of our participants was featured as a human interest story. At least in a year, we would get at least 3 to 4 individuals. And this is a good time for, a good time. But just in time, so in terms of what's going on now, justice involved individuals, we have a lot of resources going on. So there are people that are looking to try to figure out a way to involve or work with justice involved people. So that was something else that we sort of, that we sort of made our name for. But it was not hard to get media attention for the stuff that we were doing. And when an employer saw that in the paper, they would come and say, so Ms. Perry, tell me about this night trucking company that you had. And that really was one of our best success stories. The gentleman who owned that company was a former police officer. So when James had initially told me about it, I said, so you went to a former police officer, small business, and he had a diesel repair company. He worked on large trucks. And so he was willing to take our guy in because, again, he had been a former police officer. We did a job sharing where we paid a portion of his salary and we paid the other portion of his salary. That young man actually ended up getting rearrested. He came out, he called me, he told me he was rearrested. He actually ended up serving some time for failing a drug test. He got out, he called me, he said, Ms. Perry, I need to get a job. So we went and did a couple of things. I said, you know what? Let's go back to Knight's Transportation. He said, oh, Ms. Perry, I don't think I can do that. I said, look, you need a job. We're heading into the Christmas holidays. What have you got to lose? Mr. Knight thought so much of that young man that when he went back to him after coming out of incarceration for 3 months, he took him back on, and that's when he enrolled him in the program to get his diesel mechanic license. And that was after, again, but the young man had came, and when I went down there, the owner, the business owner, he was so proud of him, and he was back there working with him. He was bringing him lunch. He was inviting him because he felt like the business owner felt like a mentor to the young man. So those kinds of things happen, but it's a slow process, and it's not, like I said, one of the things that I learned is not to jump in at the deep end too quickly, sort of tear yourself or, allow yourself some room to make some mistakes, and be sure who you're working with. And of course, our program, we work with both women and men. And at that time we had a minimum age. What was it? 24, James?
25.
25.
But I see Melinda took herself off pause, so I'll take that as a cue.
Oh, okay.
She took herself off mute.
I have dogs in here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Kelly. I didn't mean to stop your flow.
Oh, no. That was basically it. I was rambling after that.
But I did want to point out, because there have been so many, I don't want to say negative stories, but a lot of going on because of exiting and reentry and being kind of hard, that transition right now with COVID. It might be the great time to try to feature some positive stories.
Yeah. And like Carolyn said, we went to the Chamber of Commerce, but don't forget your Kiwanis Club, Rotary Club. Get yourself invited there. And we've got a great connections out of Kiwanis Club. And so knowing that employers want our participants as much as they want to work. And I'll pause there, and I'll let you guide us, Melinda.
Yeah, so the other piece of what we've talked about is how to get people job ready. What we don't want, and I think you've told me about this too, James, is that, getting a position can be hard if you get someone in that job, they don't do well, or they do some of these stories we talked about, they get their paycheck and they don't come back. And then you've burned that bridge. And I know I've seen that in my own work. What are some of the things that you've done? I guess first, what were some of the lessons learned? And then the other thing, what are some of the things you've done to implement to feel comfortable when you put someone into that employment position, knowing it's not always going to be a sure thing, but that you're pretty comfortable that it's going to be a good fit and going to be good for the individual and for the program?
Well, I'll start, and then I'll let Carolyn go on because she was in that position. One thing I noticed, we do up front, we get them the CRC training or the job readiness training. So Carolyn would actually go in there and do a workshop with them on, what to wear, what to say at interviews. But, that pertains to getting the job, what to say, when they ask you if you had a felony. What to say, our participants are justice involved, but they're job ready. And that's the point we bring up to the employers. We find those that are job ready, or find those who would allow us to help them to become job ready. So that takes kind of the pressure off. But that's just the first step, getting in the door. We rely on our peer mentors to coach our participants. So they're calling them every week, every other week, saying, how's the job going? Teaching them how to, and the coaching entails teaching them how to survive in the job and how to thrive in the job environment, staying away from negative crowds, how to go through the hierarchy, chain of command, not complaining, those different etiquettes. So things like that maybe we may know it, but we don't. I've learned not to assume that our participants know it. They may have a strong desire to work, but they don't know what they don't know, and they do what they always done. So we got to make sure we continually evaluate them. And I'm gonna let Carolyn. I'm gonna ask Carolyn to take it from there.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think the career readiness training that we do, that's a huge piece. We also do the cognitive behavior intervention training, which is more of a modifying, your thought type of thing. We do these based on the assessments that the individuals take during the intake process. So we have these assessments that we hope help us to identify what they're good at, what they're not good at, what their struggles might be, and those types of things. And so the career readiness training, the cognitive behavior intervention training is one of them. Literally talking to them and getting to know them. I spent a lot of time, some of my best relationships, it wasn't so much with my participant as with their wife or their girlfriends. They kept me in the loop, and they would call me, if something happened that they thought I should know about, or those types of things. So looking around, not just at the participant, but all of those things that are around him that keep him successful. And of course, the substance abuse or substance use, whatever you want to call it. Yes, marijuana is still a drug. I don't care how socially acceptable it is. It's still a drug. So being cognitive of that. One of the things that I will admit that I struggled with, and this was a lesson learned for me, as I didn't realize I could be a little judgmental. And I was a little surprised to myself. Melinda, why are you laughing like that? But I did. I at the time, I didn't think I was being judgmental. I thought it was being, I didn't see this not my first rodeo. I've been here before. But one of the things that I realized is that everybody is where they are based on their life experiences. And so I had an instance where an individual, I had gotten him what I thought was a good interview, and he didn't go. And so when I called him, I immediately, just went in on him, and it was not a good look. And he called James, and he was upset with me. Then when James called me, I said, "You got some nerve calling me." He was the one that didn't go to this good interview that I had got from him. But I thought about it and prayed about it, and I reached back out to the young man about a couple of weeks later. Matter of fact, this happened with a couple of them, and we turned out to be really good. I won't say friends, but I had a respect for him. I realized that he had a personality that he did not take well to people in authority positions speak in a certain way to him because of some things that had happened to him in his past. And I did not realize that. And when we circled back around, because he wanted a gas card, by the way, but no worries, however I get it. But when we had that talk, it was an eye-opening experience for me. I also had another young man who disrespected me doing a training that we were doing. And so James let him have it. That young man called me and apologized, and he turned out to be one of my most diligent individuals. And he taught me a lot about just his street hustle, how he really could never get a job with too much structure because he had some things that were going on outside. He really needed to be in vocational rehab. That's another piece I want to put out there, guys. A lot of the folks that we are working with have undiagnosed issues with substance abuse and mental health. And so you really have to forge a relationship with your vocational rehabilitation agency in the area, because some people, and a lot of times they won't know it. They, you know, it's not something that they really know, but you know, sometimes you do need to make that an option for the people that you have in place there. So that's the piece that I would talk about with that. I think that's all of the cognitive behavior, the career readiness, and sometimes, oh, the other story, sometimes it was the small things. I had a young man that we were getting a job, and the employer called him, and he didn't realize that his phone was on, and he said some of the most vile things in the world. And so the employer called me, and she said, Carolyn, you know, he interviewed well, but when I called him back, you know, he didn't know I was on the phone, and I just caught him saying some really ugly things. And so I called him and I talked to him and I told him, and he admitted what had happened. But you know what? For him, he turned out to actually be a good person, a hard worker. He just had grown up in an environment where using potty mouth language was acceptable. Now, for me, you know, you couldn't grow up in my house talking like that, but he had grown up in an environment where a potty mouth and using words, that was just acceptable behavior for him. So I had to learn to embrace that as well. Now, again, while it might be acceptable in your environment, it's not acceptable in a professional workplace. So that's the conversation that we had about, well, you may talk like that. And then too, your ringtone, you can't have Kanye West on there talking about, you know, she ain't gonna do with no, you know, you so it was the small things, but you had to see those things first to sort of flesh them out. And it really is a very individualized things. And sometimes you have to be willing to humble yourself. I really was. Sometimes I was humbled and I was brought to tears by some of the folks that we interacted with, because again, I was a little judgmental. And I just assumed that you knew that you know, you're not supposed to talk this way. You're not supposed to act this way. And they really didn't know what they didn't know. So that's it.
And that gentleman actually wound up being the employee of the month.
Sure did. Sure did.
You know, for the agency that he worked for.
And let me jump back to another thing. When it comes to employers, guys, so once we got people placed at employers and they were good people, we could then use that. We ended up, it was never an employer that I placed just one person at, if it was a good person. But if we placed a person with an employer and that employer was a good person, that employer would be on the phone to me in 30 days. You got any more? You got any more? So when you do that, think about that as well, because you know the easiest one to get is the one that you always have. So typically, if you can place one person with them, that person does a good job, you can place another person with them as well.
That was a good point. Any questions for us? Melinda? You're on mute.
Unmute. Thank you. I knew I would do it at some point. I mean, I think one question I have for you, you know, we are very much a partnership organization. We have a small core staff, but, you know, we're building and expanding our partnerships. And I know Carolyn referred to being kind of the traffic cops. And so can you speak a little bit about how you used your partners, either to get people ready for employment or to reach out to employers?
Well, do you want to start, Carolyn?
I will. I think in building partnerships, and you want to approach folks that have like-minded mission. So everybody is really busy and everybody's working with the least that they can. So you want to be sure you are looking at partners that this becomes a win-win for them, that what you're doing is going to help benefit them as well. And once you do that, then the partnership piece of it becomes easy. But looking for agencies that can see the value in what you're doing, and the value in what you're doing is going to help them with what they want to do. And like I said, transportation, we had a issue with transportation. One of the jobs that we had, we used one of our folks that we were in our program. We allowed him to be transport for us. So he would pick up a group of guys every day to take to the job site, and we paid him to do that transport for us. Another young man started the transportation business out of the need to knowing that there were a barrier to transportation in the area. And so he could do that. So like I said, that asset mapping, looking for, and thinking thinking outside of the box. One of the things that we came up when we first got started is one of the ministers of the faith-based community, you know, is huge in this kind of work. So one of the things that one of the pastors has said to us is, you know, these churches have these church bands sitting in the parking lot and they're not doing anything. And, you know, how can they help out? And we did have a couple of churches who were willing to use their vans to do transportation programs for us. So just things like that. A couple of churches allowed us to use their meeting facilities. The public libraries were always willing to allow us again to use their meeting facilities at no cost, as long as I could get in the rotation. And then once I got in the rotation, they were calling me saying, Carolyn, I see you use the conference room the first Tuesday of every month. Somebody trying to book it. Do you need it? So, you know, that kind of thing, being consistent and being available. And partnerships cannot be one way. You can't just do all the taking and whatever. You also have to be willing to do something. Reciprocity is huge there. What are you willing to do? What are you putting on the table? You just can't come in there asking for stuff and expecting stuff and not put something back into it. So you have to be willing to put something back into it. You have to be willing to be strategic. And you have to look for people with like-minded missions and goals, and working with, you know, like NC Works Office, vocational rehabilitation, employment agencies. I have a couple of employment agencies. I can call them right now and they say, how many have you got, Carolyn? Send them over. So just looking for agencies that, you know, again, have some of the same type of goals as you have.
That was excellent. I like to just partner with what Carolyn's saying, you know, add a little bit. And that's what we've been doing. First of all, we did our asset map. Actually, we're doing one now. Each county on an asset map. We're finding out what organizations can benefit from what we have, or we can benefit from what they have. And we put that, whether it's faith-based organizations, whether it's we had a barbershop in Vance County, Henderson. They wanted people, so we paid for someone to get a license there. That person now has his own barbershop, you know. So we find out. So when we categorize, when we put these the community resources and organizations on a piece of paper, then we meet with them, and when we meet with them, we're listening to what they need first, what problem they're trying to solve. We help them solve their problem, and then we add our solution to it. So, and then we come up with, okay, this is what we're going to do. For instance, when we sat down with Crown, you know, they would say, well, we got this retention. I say, well, let's do this. And what if we do this? So now they're partnering with you and they're problem solving with you. So you automatically partner. You partner with them. And you just continue to be consistent, you know, keep consistent, following up. Like Carolyn said, we had one place, there was a bottling company that was thinking of going out of business. But we went and we matched up an employee, a participant to that company, and he's been calling, hey, listen, you got anybody else? You got anybody else? You know, and it was a great partnership. So like I was saying, we're not going to toss our participants at people. We're going to partner and help solve a problem. And what was also key is the peer mentors. The peer mentors are calling the participants. They find out things. Now, our peer mentors has a criminal background as well. So they can find out things that we don't know. We had one person who called us and said, hey, listen, you better check on Johnny. You know, I think something going on, you know. And then we do a home visit, and we smell alcohol on his breath, or we see him walking, taking 2 steps forward, 1 backwards and 1 sideways. We say, okay, you know, you can't diagnose someone with an alcohol problem, but you can have him go and get assessed. You know, so we found things like that. So just partnering and staying with them. We just have 4 people just, they got solar jobs in Halifax County. So we're calling them and saying, hey, how's everything going? When they get a job, we, like Carolyn said, we call them and say, hey, how's it going? How's the job going? When he says, well, I don't know, you know, things are not fair. So we teach them how to self-advocate in a way that's going to help them stay on the job. Because if they don't have that, they'll leave the job and the boss don't know why they left. So I hope that helps.
And James, that made me think of something else. I was trying to put it in the chat. One of the other things, guys, is that we need to involve just as involved individuals in our decision-making processes, because nobody knows better than them what the system is and how to make the system work. And I'm not just talking about, now peer mentors, of course, in my opinion, they actually have to be just as involved. But I mean, in your decision-making process, you should have someone who has been just as involved. And then having said that, you should also have, like, there are standard agencies, the community college, any other agency in your service area that is doing anything with reentry. You guys, we're not competition. We're not here to do, your job or whatever. I want to enhance. I always tell everybody, look, I'm here to make your job easier. Let me enhance what you need to do. What is it that I can do? Being sure that you are a part of the neighborhood. In Vance County, we participated in a couple of community events they had. We wanted them to know that we weren't just coming in there and leaving, but they had some, I forgot what it was, but it was something with the barbershops. We made sure that our presence was known. We had banners, we had tables up there, but we had a presence in the neighborhood. And people saw that we weren't just coming in and then at 5 o'clock we were gone.
Does anyone else have a question? I know we'll probably wrap up this section and get to the next part of the meeting, but if anyone's got a burning question, I would definitely want you to bring it up.
And to Miss Davis asked, do we partner with community colleges? You better know it.
Yes.
That's probably, and of course I'll say this and then somebody will get on me, but between the NC Works office and the community college, I don't know, James, I would say they are probably the two top most important partners that we have. And in the community college, it's not just one contact we have. James has his group of folks that he know, and I have my group of folks that I know. It's multiple levels that we continue, the continuing ed department, the small business center, it's several, and James has some management folks that he worked with, but it's several entry points that we use at the community college. And of course, at the NC Works office, I'd be sure I know all of the case managers. They used to have in some of the counties, I'm not sure they have them anymore, but they used to have a person that was actually sort of designated, if you will, what's it called, ex-offender coordinator or something. I think somebody told me they don't have that at NC Works any longer. But yeah, NC Works in the community college probably.
We still have Miss. We still have Miss Ida. She's. I don't think that's her title, Miss Ida Watson, but she's definitely a contact person here at Tillery for that, and that'll get disseminated through the center once you connect with her. But now that I'm on the subcommittee, so it'll be it'll be another arm to reach out to. So that's still available as well.
Yeah, very valuable resource. And yeah, so and what the community colleges do, they've even had custom classes for our participants, to get certification. So they definitely need, and also probation. When we didn't do drug tests, we would follow up with probation to find out did they pass the last drug test. And also there was times when we couldn't locate them and probation could, or we can locate them and probation couldn't. So you have to do that circle of support. Not only that, staying connected to their emergency contact, because you call Miss Jenkins, she's gonna tell you something, Junior's not acting right, and then you get, so it's getting everybody involved in the process.
Great. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. I just want to.
Melinda, I see one in the chat.
Yep, you're right, in the chat.
Miss Davis wants to know, as a success, what is the longest time of employment? I must admit, because we have moved to a different county, I have not tracked that. Now, for the program, James, you want to tell them about how we measure it for the program, the retention?
Yeah, we measure about a quarter. Once they get a job, Then they go into what we call follow-up. That means now they have the job, we gave them support, and now we're going to see how long they stay on that job and what support they need to continue on that job. So I'm happy to say 96% of our participants never went back within a year, never went back to jail within a year. We have I think it's 83%. I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but I think it's 83% stayed employed for the first quarter, and then it went down to about maybe 63%. I'm guessing, but I can get the numbers to you about who stayed employed throughout the 3 quarters.
Right. And what we did, Miss Davis, is that Miss Davis? I'm sorry, I thought I saw she was female, but P. Davis, what we do is that once we get them employment, then we track them for 12 months. Once they find stable employment, our tracking period is actually 12 months. So as long as they do 12 months, then for us, that's success for us, if that makes sense.
And I'm sorry, I know this is the employment committee, but what kind of worked with that was housing. So because they were transient, they had to, and they had a ride. So they had a ride to a job, but now they have to leave their apartment. So now they didn't have a ride anymore. So we had to kind of work hand in hand. So we got creative with even housing. We made a list of real estate agents, and we started calling them and say who would rent to a returning citizen if we would support them, as far as if they're behind in their rent or if they need coaching and things like that. So we got several that wouldn't mind, and they became our go-to when our participants needed housing.
Absolutely.
Miss Carolyn, I didn't want to cut you off, and I was in the chat because I did not want to interrupt you talking. I'm learning. So, like I said, I cover 17 counties. So I've always been with the Durham LRC. I was with it when it began, but I thought I need to be with all of the LRCs with all of the counties, and Wake was the best choice. I've learned so much, and that's why I sit here like this.
I need to practice that too, Ms. Davis.
No.
No, I mean just in general, because what I mean just with the clients, if you will listen, you will see their story play out right in front of you.
You meet them where they are. Yes, ma'am.
Well, does anyone have any questions afterwards? I can put my contact in, right? I think I did.
We did.
Feel free to contact me. I'll put it again. Well, they have it. Everyone has it. Feel free to email me. And thank you, Melinda, for having us.
Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. I think, at least for me, I've got a lot of food for thought and ideas, and my guess is we'll spend a lot of time in our next meeting really trying to drill down. But just, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but one thing that really occurs to me is maybe being kind of our pressing issue for this committee is getting some of these other partners that people have mentioned. And so I'm just wondering, thinking, is there someone from the chambers that we can invite to join this committee? I think we also had mentioned wanting, luckily we got Wake Tech here, but I think somebody had mentioned in the previous meeting about wanting to try to get someone from Jobs for Life or Step Up Ministry. So I'm just wondering, as we're thinking about other partners, or there's other people or organizations you think we need specifically in this committee?
Melinda, did you mention, I'm sorry, I can see her face, James. They work mostly with women, and I think it's mostly a peer mentor program out of a church. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, you're talking about Jennifer Jackson.
Yes.
From Interfaith.
That's
and Dr.
Interfaith.
Knowles.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's IPMW, Interfaith Prison Ministries for Women, and they are one of our partners. So good.
But I wonder if we should ask if they want to, if someone on that in their organization would be interested in joining this committee.
So let me tell you what they did that was an eye opener for me. What was it called? A simulation, where we were a person that was previously incarcerated, and they set up a system for, trying to get out and get the various documents that you needed. Oh my goodness. Luckily I did that like my first month on the job. But they do that, and that's a wonderful training tool.
We actually had it scheduled for our whole career center staff, youth and adults.
Oh, okay.
In April.
Oh. Reschedule.
Yeah, no, we had gotten the big center at the Wake County Commons. We have heard, and I'm glad you reminded us of that, because I think it'll be something that would be good for the whole, not just this committee, but the whole
council.
Larger council. No, it's really, I heard that, and I've been really wanting to do it just because of that, and but I don't think it works in this setting.
Another important partner that we use is the police department and sheriff department, especially in our rural communities. I am blessed to be able to have the police chief of Franklin County on my cell phone, and he picks up when I call. And it's huge, especially in this environment. Having their support is huge.
Well, I like that. When we for a team training, I showed a portion of the film Release. No, Oprah Winfrey did a series of released people that are just returning from incarceration, and you can see it's a reality show, but you can see some of the challenges. So we watched that as a team to kind of get a feel for really how difficult it is, and help us kind of build our capacity for the compassion to really help in those different areas. So that was helpful. And thank you. That's all I have to say about that.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you, especially to Melinda, because it was your idea to bring on the New Start program, and this is excellent. So I'm thanking Melinda, because we got so much information today. I'm giving you all the kudos, because boy, this is a wealth of information. Thank you, Carolyn and James Johnson, and even for the excellent questions, Miss Davis. This is just, I have a lot of notes, a lot of stuff to think about. So thank you. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you. And if anybody want to reach out, just please. And we don't consider ourselves experts, but we consider ourselves co-workers, finding out, because we're all doing something that never existed before. And thank you for the partnership.
Oh, thank you all. Well, I think we've got like a couple of minutes left, but I don't want to lose. If there's anybody is there anyone who'd like to reach out to someone to join this committee? I just want to document it, and then we can try to get them before the next committee. And I think maybe what me and Kaiser and Lenarda can do, and Donna, is to take some of the nuggets that we heard out of this to bring back to the bigger group, or bring back to this committee next time, and say, are these some of the action items that we want to add? We've kind of got our overall goals, but you all really helped us put some meat to those goals. And so I think have some strategies that we can start to pursue. Just to say, I will reach out to Jobs for Life to see if they have someone that could join this committee.
I can connect with the chambers that I'm affiliated with, as well as getting my peers to, because we are all based in connected with different counties, and so not different counties, but different cities, whether it's Fuquay, whether it's Knightdale. So I'll take that charge. But I did want to say something that was interesting about what they shared was the peer mentors. And one thing I noticed about when it comes to reentry, and even before I got into workforce, is about buy-in. And buy-in is really important from a visible aspect as well as oral aspect. If you don't gain that trust, and even if you do have that initial trust, you have to sustain that trust, and stability, repetition, all of these things have to be related to. And a lot of people that are coming back into the community, they don't have a lot of trust, and to go in front of a after you've been coached, after you've taken job ready classes, to go in front of an employer that doesn't speak the same lingo is still intimidating. And you get there and you feel out of place. I did a lot of intervention with gangs, and one of the things they always told me, hey, when we go into neighborhoods that people are wealthy, we're more uncomfortable than they are coming into our neighborhood. So the thing is how do we bridge that gap? And I thought that was real important to have, you know, some peer mentors to kind of be on that level so they feel open enough to talk. Hey, I don't want to talk to Mr. Kaiser because he seems like he won't understand me, but I'm having a few issues at the job. And, you know, that person can relay the information to Mr. Kaiser that he can talk to the employer. But I think that's real important, building that framework and having the right people to build that framework, to develop the trust on both sides. So that was really, really cool to hear.
Well, if I can say one person that may be great to bring to the committee is someone from legal aid.
Mm-hmm. And I think we have people from legal aid on the housing committee. Is that
Yes.
right, Leonardo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can see if there's an interest, but, you know, also knowing they've got limited time. And right now, housing, just like y'all were talking about, I mean, we got to get people into secure housing before we can do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And Melinda, I'll take on legal aid. I've already had that relationship.
Okay.
And actually, it probably makes sense for me to go ahead and work with IPMW since I have that relationship as well.
Okay. And again, you know, if you know, we certainly want to be respectful, but if they do have someone who has an interest, I think maybe they just may not realize that we could use more help on this committee, because I think there's so much we can be doing, and having more partners on board. Does anyone have? I have a contact with Step Up Ministries, but if someone else has a better one, I'm happy to talk to them as well. And actually, I think Donna has a good contact.
Yeah,
I'm going to
that's what I was gonna
volunteer.
say.
I'm going to volunteer the person who's not here. Yeah, they're a great organization. I had worked with them in Durham before I had come here. Great. Anything else, as Carolyn would say, for the good of the cause?
Mm-hmm.
I just realized I have been saying that since I worked with Carolyn.
She leaves an impression.
It's my birthday. Be nice to me.
Happy birthday.
Always, always.
Don't tell my boss, but this is my last official duty for the day.
That's okay. You earned it. And I'm gonna leave out for another meeting, but please, if anybody want to contact me, just feel free. Thank you for having me.
James,
Thank you.
James, before you leave, Melinda, do you mind if I just share one piece of information? I know you haven't moved on to it, but I want to make sure James catches it too. We mentioned legal aid tomorrow. We do have a virtual service provider expungement session, and that will be facilitated by legal aid. So that's on. If you didn't get that meeting invite, you will get it. I think you probably should have gotten a really long email from me on Monday. It's a whole bunch of links in there, but
yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I may cut that down and resubmit that. I probably will cut that down and resubmit that today so that people are aware. So,
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Yes, it's
excellent.
on my schedule, and
good.
And I forwarded it out. I have a Facebook called Reentry 2020 is our Facebook page, and I send announcements and everything through that. So things that you send to me, I broadcast out.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thank
you.
you, and thank you so much. And I'll talk to you guys soon, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right,
All
thanks.
right. Thank you. And
Thank
thank you everyone else for joining this. I think we only ran a few minutes later, but I think it was a lot of good content, and we got a lot of stuff to think about and discuss for our next meeting. But we'll send out notes before that'll maybe bullet some of the things that came up here, and then we can dig in and figure out our next steps. So we'll see everyone. Well, hopefully we'll see everyone next month at our council meeting, and then we'll see everyone in our smaller group in 2 months.
And tomorrow.
And tomorrow.
And before you guys go,
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, before you guys go, you'll get an email later on today about the event tomorrow. And then Friday, there'll be another. I just want to make sure there's no confusion. There'll be another opportunity. Tomorrow's event is specifically for you all, service providers. The email that would go out Friday after tomorrow's event, I'm waiting just to not, eliminate confusions. That expungement opportunity will be for your reentry participants. So please get that out as well. You're welcome to join, but that one starting on next month, we will have a monthly virtual criminal record expungement learning session. It's 2 hours. I'll also add that begins on February 4th, the monthly session. And on February 4th, that particular event will be virtual, but and that's because of the weather, the flu and COVID and all that kind of stuff. But it's our plan to going forward that it will be in person, limited to 12 people. You'll get that information as well. But just remember, February 4th is virtual, and it's for the reentry participants. Right now, tomorrow is the only thing we have scheduled for service providers. Thank you very much. You all have a great week.
You too.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a
bye.
great one, everyone.